So considering whether or not to sandblast and outdrive and getting it ready for paint and do some corrosion protection, some preventative maintenance, so I decided I was going to blast my two outdrives and paint them up. I recommend it. Works pretty great. I'm using my Harbor Freight 40-pound blast unit right here, and I just set it on this workbench, made myself kind of a blast cabinet to collect some of the grit. This is aluminum oxide. Comes in this container right here from Harbor Freight. It's about $1 a pound, so I just didn't want it blowing all over the neighborhood. I wanted to find a way to collect some of it, so I made myself sort of a cabinet that just, where the grit can just fall on the ground. I sweep it up, screen it through this bucket right here, and reuse it. I've probably reused it 10 times already. My goal was to save about 80%. I thought if I could do that, it'd be worth doing. So it works pretty well. Doesn't cause any damage. Able to clean out all of the pits of corrosion right down to the fresh aluminum underneath. Some of the pitting was really deep. Anywhere where there's still black left inside, that's corrosion. We want to get that out of there. Here where the skeg was bare a lot from dragging through the sand, got some corrosion there. There's some corrosion here. I'll have to retouch this, re-blast that again, get every little bit of that dark gray out of there so it's back down to bright aluminum. Here's where I stopped right here. Some of those parts you want to protect, you don't want to abrade that polished prop shaft. You can use duct tape if you want, or maybe you can come up with something else, as well as this drive shaft. This part in here I'm going to do by hand. I don't want to rough up these surfaces where the gaskets sit and so forth. I could tell over the years that someone had taken a grinder to it and tried to just grind out a few of the blisters and repaint it. Had probably 10 different layers of paint on it. Some of the pitting was really deep. This one here is, I don't know if you can get there and see that. That is probably 1/8 of an inch deep. I'm going to make a repair to that before I paint it. I'm going to use some maybe marine texture, some epoxy or something. Pretty corroded around this right here. Wasn't really, I think I've stopped the advance of the corrosion by replacing the anodes and by repairing the Mercathode. Well, that's what it looks like when you get the paint off. Few spots left to do over. See how this is all bright? This is all bright aluminum colored. And this has still got some gray in it, some dark gray down in there. It's got to be all taken out. A little bit left in here. Try and get every little bit of it. I couldn't imagine being able to get that out with just some sandpaper. You can't get down those little holes. And if you just paint over that corrosion, it'll just progress. Now you might read something on the internet, lots of good advice, or you might go to Napa and they might tell you what to do. This is aircraft paint remover. This is paint stripper. Works in 5 minutes. Non-flammable. This is $50 a gallon. Interesting, I saw right here it says do not use on aircraft. Got a picture of an airplane on the front. Well, I used it and it took off some of the paint. It did something. Took off some of the paint. It had absolutely no effect on this original black paint that was on here. And that didn't soften it, it didn't blister it all up. Nothing, it had no effect on that. Some of this other layers of spray bombs that have been put on this unit over time, you know, a little bit of that came off. Just wasn't sufficient at all. And I wanted to get every bit of this pitting cleaned out. Wasn't going to be able to do that with stripper. You know, a lot of media went into that exhaust port there. I haven't done around this edge right here with the sandblaster. I don't really want to pack a lot of grit in there. I'll do that part by hand. Not too worried about this port. Port flushes out with water and air pretty easy. I want to be careful not to disturb this check ball valve right here and this rubber O-ring that's already installed there. So this funny cabinet right here, I just made out of some 2x4s I had in the garage and some leftover shrink wrap that I used to shrink wrap the boat, and it works just great. I'm able to just stand in here and blast. Most of the media falls. Most of the media falls on the ground and I can just sweep it up. So I'm getting ready to blast some more right on this part. This is a pretty dirty and miserable job. A couple things, this hood that came with the blaster from Harbor Freight, it works fine for a little while, then it gets all fogged up and dirty and it's hard to see. Definitely recommend a respirator. After blasting for about 10 minutes, my ears were ringing. The whistling of that air going across the edges and so forth really hurt my ears. I recommend some earplugs as well. After about 10 minutes of sandblasting, the inside of this brass valve was completely eaten away. It doesn't shut the air off anymore. So I had bought this style right here. It's got this where's the thing? Here it is. Got the style shut off on it. But after 5 minutes of holding this thing squeezed, I decided that wasn't for me, and I'm just going to use this one. Just leave the valve open. When I'm ready to start blasting, I just crank it open. I just hit stand here and hold this and work. I won't have the camera running while I'm blasting because it gets all dirty. So in about 10 minutes of blasting and to clean up and everything, 10 minutes, I did the rest of this bullet here, and I went over this part of the skeg right here. Looks like I got most of the corrosion out of those little pits, and I'll be able to prep that, prevent corrosion in the future. A couple more spots I gotta hit. Well, this one's not corroded as bad around the lower gear housing there. You can't possibly get the corrosion out of there with sandpaper. You gotta blast it out. Alright, so I've rolled the unit over and I'm ready to blast this last side. You can see the results of the aircraft stripper. Paint's definitely not removed. Some of the paint came off. Some of the many layers. But here's my funny cabinet I made just out of some 2x4s and a piece of shrink wrap. Works great. Costs nothing.